Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I hope you've smiled today. My name is Trisha Howard, aka Trisha Kicks Sass, and thank you so much for choosing to spend your time with us today. I am so excited for this. I know I'm excited for every freaking episode, but I'm so excited for this one because I have the one, the only Chris Finch on with me. How's it going, Chris?
Good. How you doing, Trisha?
I'm doing well. The hero, the rogue. Which one shall we call you?
Rogue for sure.
Rogue for sure.
Definitely rogue. Yeah.
Good. We like those here in security, of
I
course.
can work with that. I can work within those constructs. The hero is just expectations, man. You know.
Totally get it. Totally. I'm with you on that. You got a lot more room to play with the rogue. So if you wouldn't mind, introduce yourself. Why should everyone be just as or even more excited to talk to you than I am?
So again, good to meet everyone. Chris Finch. I have been in and around games and game security for a very long time now. Actually, I helped Lord British with his community team launch Ultima 9, way back when. We won't talk about how long ago that was. I've worked with companies to write quests for MMOs, and before I came into this particular sphere, I worked with a mid-market games company to create a behavioral simulation / Minecraft alike that would help people understand how people behave in certain scenarios. And I built the the back-end analytics pipeline for that, as well as the data model and the methodology to create that science. So I've been around this stuff for a while. And then, of course, what I did is I jumped ship to cloud providers. And I've been doing kind of sharing the knowledge that I learned all this across those years with cloud provider companies for the last 7.5, I guess, 8 years now or something like that. So that's why I'm here. And I hope that's exciting. If it's not, that's totally cool too. I'm just cool to be happy to be here.
It is very exciting, and in fact, we could have our own show just on what you were talking about. Holy moly, there's so much there. But I was really excited to talk. Obviously, I'm a huge gamer myself, big nerd, and we are working together on some other very exciting pieces of research on games specifically. So those of you, be on the lookout. That's coming very soon. Some really exciting security stats, and also we'll be moving into some cloud stuff too. So I'm very, very excited with that. But I wanted to have Chris on because obviously we have a ton of traffic coming our way, the world, with the big event that is the Olympics, right? And when we start talking about sports, whether it be esports or traditional sports, there's a lot of security and streaming challenges that come along with this, right? And so who better to have on than you to talk about this? So I'm very excited. We're going to switch into that. Before we get into that, I do want to make a quick notice for those of you who have not had a chance to see what we've had going on in our research world lately. We had a couple of really good pieces come out. Of course, our typical Patch Tuesday release came out earlier this week. Go check that out if you haven't had a chance to patch. We do have a couple of 1 days that, again, we're following in the same trend. Attackers are utilizing 1 day. So again, patching is not overrated, y'all. It's not overrated. We had some PHP stuff. Of course, we have some guidance around the OpenSSH vulnerability that came out. Go check that out. That's very important. And lastly, but of course not least, we did have a new SOTI come out on commerce and talking about web scrapers and bots, which is very important to what we are talking about today. So all of those links are in the show notes. Go check those out, and definitely will not be disappointed, although I'm obviously biased. Okay, now that I've gotten my little research sales pitch out of the way, let's move. So
Cool.
bots. Let's start there, right? Bots are kind of huge in games now. So what kind of things can bots, what kind of issues can bots bring to on your side, the actually delivery or cloud side? Can we start there maybe?
Sure. I mean, bots, as with most tools, can be both a force for good and for evil. Some games literally, allow it or, provide mechanisms for you to leverage them, and some of them actively, police against them.
Right.
In both cases, overuse can have lots of issues. You can wind up, with not enough bandwidth to serve the actual players. This is especially true for those games that don't have legitimate uses for bots.
Right.
So that's kind of A. B, because with a bot, you're not limited to the normal range of inputs that you normally have. for a player, you can wind up discovering funny little exploits or cheats or ways to play the game in that were not intended and normally would not have been achievable by the way the client works. Kind of in the same way that you'd hack an exe to kind of take away geometry or line of sight
Yep.
or stuff like that. But in similar ways, because you have automation, now you can find out those exploits a lot faster, cheat the game faster, ruin an economy faster, those kinds of things. So there's lots of things that a bot can do to mess with, even in a legit game that says, okay, please bring your bots. There can be, it's not as bad as code injection, but it is as bad as
But
giving
it can get
someone
there.
your game API, letting them just push all the buttons at the same time to see what happens.
Right, right. So this is one of my favorite things I think about this community is that the games community and the security research community are very close, right? And this makes sense. You have a very technologically savvy audience here within games, and I think part of the coolest things about the games community is that developers have allowed for things like that, like bringing your own bots and building communities around things that traditionally security people would be like, "What are you doing?" What is going on, right? And so I really enjoy that. But to your point, it brings some very very interesting security challenges that are quite unique to games. You have, I mean, okay, so let's say like a commerce organization. Is going to be, if an attacker is going after a commerce, they're likely going for money, right? It's pretty easy to say that. But with games, who knows? It could just be that they got mad that a streamer said something they didn't like, right?
or they're bored. I
Or they're
mean,
bored. Yes. Yes. Really annoyed at this boss. Really annoyed at this boss in that, very obvious roguelite that I'm not going to say, but you know which one I'm talking about. That's super hard. And you really just want to beat it and you want to move on, right? Is what happens. So yeah, it's very interesting. It's very interesting. And don't so then now transitioning from the technical issues from just on a local level. Now let's talk about extrapolating that out. So I know you have some really great stories. Would you mind like sharing what it's like trying to get one of these major events distributed without it going down?
so there's a couple of different contexts. I think since you pegged me for distribution as well, what I'll do is I'll talk about there was a big fight a bunch of years ago, televised stream fight, and it went through multiple network channels. And what was interesting about it wasn't just the scope and the scale, but this was probably, I want to say, maybe 8 years ago.
Mhm.
DevSecOps was not in its primacy yet. It was still really rudimentary. And so, basically on the, so we'd worked with the customer, we'd gotten the stream ready, we'd gotten it, just, it was ready, it was tested as good as it could be. All the safeguards were in place, but DevSecOps in that particular instance, I was the guy. I had two monitors. I had the fight over here streaming, right? And I had all the monitors that I had to scroll through, vertically up and down all the time to make sure that, okay, all the packets were hitting and all the, their DDoS wasn't happening. And if it was, where it was coming from and what we needed to do about it. All of the metrics were literally on the screen over here. And, I'm not the biggest fight guy necessarily, but, of course, when you've got one in front of you, you got to appreciate, there's professionals with skills here that are in a competition and,
Yep.
you've got to appreciate it. So you get distracted by, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's cool. Oh, the round's over. Oh, crap. I haven't looked at the metrics for like a minute. Oh, no. Scroll, right? Now, we were lucky we had solid technology, solid infrastructure, and solid network. So the thing went well, right? But, to be one of maybe two or three guys, girls, whatever, individuals who were scrolling through the metrics, trying to figure out what was going on, make sure we had the people on call to do what they needed to do if something did happen.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's really, really crude, but that was how it worked. And that's why we developed into DevSecOps, because that's not appropriate. You need monitoring, you need alerting, you need, the ability to see funny stuff in near real time. If this window of time is fine, maybe this one isn't. So you need to be checking against windows of time as you go for anomalies.
Yep. Yes, absolutely. I mean, you can, program an executable to wait 30 minutes so that it doesn't get caught and then it goes on. There's so much that has to be monitored. And you hit on something that anybody who's watched the show knows that I take very personally, which is talking about the human element. So you said, it's very easy to get distracted. Of course it is. These two people are professionals at what they do. And it's very intoxicating to watch. That's why you're doing what you're doing. Right. makes a lot of money. So, yeah, people are going to get distracted, right? And so, when you're dealing with these types of, we talked about this a lot, especially around the holidays or any other, events. This is whenever the criminals will come out, the attackers will come out because they know that you're
Yeah.
distracted.
Mhm.
And what better time to try and code inject something whenever it's live and you have on the most watched event globally of the year, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Um, so yes, it's a very interesting thing. So, can we talk about uptime and reliability? So, you mentioned talking. You said something before that I really want to talk about. You said the Christmas light version. Can you talk about like the Christmas light uh,
Oh yeah.
failover?
So I mean, yeah, I think we were it was about patching we were talking about earlier as
Yes.
well.
Yep.
It's so I mean, inevitably what can happen with those kinds of scenarios is that you're talking about infrastructure that may need to be rebooted or reset or shifted or taken off, air gapped, and actually taken out of service possibly. And obviously you can't do that in the middle of a stream unless you've literally got a mechanism, a highly available mechanism, so that way you can take that hardware, that infrastructure down, and
Yep.
keep the stream running. So yeah, even if you've got a data center strategy where you've got the ability to have, you've got multiple racks of these, an HA setup where you've got, your load balance across multiple stacks, multiple clusters, and any one of those clusters can come up and down, not just within the cluster, but the cluster themselves.
Yeah. Right.
So it's kind of it's a tiered bing 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 sort of a thing where you've got the kind of almost like a global traffic manager, if you will, up here distributing between clusters, and then you've got clusters distributing between nodes. Any one of those needs to be able to come off, and the others need to stay on, like you said, like the Christmas lights. So that way,
Yep.
at least you've got enough clusters to continue servicing the stream as it's live. And I think the live event part of it is super important too. I do, as much as I normally in my day job like to say, don't over provision, you can always scale up. For events like this, I feel like over provisioning is not necessarily a bad strategy just for things like this. If you've got too much, that means you can take something down if you have to.
True.
In a live event that can happen. And if you're planning on traditional scaling mechanisms, sometimes if you're really lucky, you can come up in 30 seconds or so. Imagine the 30-second part of your stream where you've
Right.
got the jerk. Things are jerking around and it's crumbling.
Yes.
Your
Yep.
users notice that, the customers, advertisers knows it, everybody notices it, and then it's a mess. So yeah, I think you're both a combination of over provisioning and making sure you've got a good swap out strategy. A good Christmas light strategy is really important for that stuff. Yeah.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. Yeah. You don't want your stream to start looking like a really bad FPS player, right? So, yes. And something else that I want to hit on really quick before I switch over, because we're already almost at time. How does this happen every single show? It's because I have such cool people on. Yes. Also, with the live event that you mentioned, there's the physical security aspect of this, and this is something that I think is very important, because yes, you can have the technology set up in your HA setup, you can have everything set up, put it whatever, and then somebody unplugs it, and that's it, right? And so it's a very interesting. Anytime we start talking about live events, and especially ones that have a broadcast element, like the security elements really do go all around, and one thing is not better than the other. They are all necessary.
Yeah.
um
Well, and you've also got cool tools now to help with that as well. You've got anomaly detection is no longer nearly as reliant on the human eye.
yeah
You've got AI/ML models that can, not the generative stuff, much simpler stuff that's much faster, much more responsive, and that can work in windows of time. Something
yep
like a Flink, examination where you can run SQL queries right in the stream as it's going to see, okay, how are these metrics working? Do we have anomalies? What is the anomaly? Throw an email, send an alert, have another system investigate that system, and then throw an alert, give me a status report. All this stuff doesn't have to be, 3-4 people in chairs trying not to watch the fight while watching the fight.
Sure.
That's some good stuff.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
very good point. And now I wish that that's what I was going to be doing the rest of the day. But alas, um, before I do our little bye section, are there any other like wisdom nuggets that you would like to share with our lovely audience here?
Well, since you mentioned the human element, I'm going to bring up, another way to make sure that you're ensuring your streamer community is safe is toxicity detection and monitoring as well. That's super, super important.
Yes.
Quick shout out to fairplayalliance.org. They do an amazing job with the games industry, helping them to understand how to do that. But that's super important stuff as well. And that's also something that you can leverage. AIML for monitoring. Natural language processing does a great job, not just of sentiment analysis, but of keyword detection. And you can use that as a way to kind of do triage on, discover who your worst actors are and who your better actors are, and figure out how to monitor them separately as well. That again, I could go on forever about, so I won't. But yeah,
I'll have to have you on again because we can absolutely talk about that. Yes, yes. Oh, that was great. That's a great one, and it's very near and dear to my heart. The human element, and especially being kind. Kindness is a superpower, y'all. It is not overrated. And with that being said, thank you, everybody. We are not going to have a show in August. I know. You can start crying now. But I will be at Black Hat. I will be at Black Hat. So come stop by Black Hat USA, I should say. Come stop by and say hi at the Akamai booth. I will be there. And you can, we'll maybe take some selfies or something. We'll see how that goes. Check out our SIG page on akamai.com. This is where you can find any of our research. The most easy way to keep up to date in real time is our X account, formerly Twitter. That is x.com/akamai_research. You can bookmark this page so you never miss an episode. I know that it would be horrible if you did. You don't want to do that. And if you have a question, suggestion, comments, concerns, jokes, send us an email at brighttalk@akamai.com and we will address them as soon as we can. Thank you so much. I'll see you on the 25th of September. Cybernara, y'all.